Okay, shalom v'bracha, everybody. Actually, the sugya that we're doing is on Daf Daled Amud Beis and Hey Amud Aleph a bit, and it's a few inyanim of Makief and Nikif that we touched on previously. I just want to go a certain chidushin that developed and very central to the Gemara itself. I want to take the last teretz of the Gemara. The Gemara says, the Gemara is the kasha. The Mishnah says, "Makav es chaver mishalish v'choysa v'gadar es v'shayna v'sashniya v'sashlishis ein mechayiv v'noisei." According to Tanakama, you're not mechayiv him to be mishtatif, and the Gemara is medayik that by revius you are mechayiv him. And Rabbi Yossi says, "Im amad v'gadar es revius magalgal v'sakol." And if the Im amad the gadar es revius, the Gemara discusses whether it's Makav or Nikif, and magalgal v'sakol. So what's the difference between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yossi? So according to the Manda Amma who says Hakol lefi masha gadar, so when Rabbi Yossi says Hakol lefi masha gadar, so the Tanakama holds that it's a lesser amount, whether it's Dmei Konim Bezoil v'chule. However, if according to the second Manda Amma Gemara of Chia Barav, Hakol lefi Dmei Konim Bezoil, so what does the Tanakama hold? So the Gemara has a few possibilities. So the last teretz in the Gemara over here in Daf Daled Amud Beis, the Gemara says, Lishnach, Makav v'nikaf ike benayu. Makav v'nikaf ike benayu. The Tanakama holds, Tanakama sova, im goda, Makav es revius, nami yoevlei. So if the Makif continued and he made a wall around the fourth wall, so then the Nikif also has to be mishtatif half of the hoitzois of all the walls. And Rabbi Yossi Sava im Amad Nikif Gadar Servius Hudi Yarvle. Only in that situation does he have to pay for all the walls. Because why? Because the Gali daited the Nichalei. In that situation, then the Nikif expresses interest and he shows that he's willing to make the geder, and he's happy in the fact that the Makif did the other three walls. However, if the Makif did the fourth wall, in that case, lo yorev lemidi, then the Nikif doesn't have to join in because there's no Gila Das. So according to this teretz, the situation is reversed, and Rabbi Yossi is really coming to be mekel on Tanakama. He's saying he has to pay less. So according to this teretz, Rabbi Yossi says that if the Makif did the revius, he's not chayiv to pay. The Ma'aseh, the Gemara in Bava Kama on Daf Chaf in the Sugi of Zen Hena v'Zalei Chaser assumes this teretz of the Gemara. In other words, this mahalach that this is the different the Makif and Nikif benayim. That is the machlokas between them. So what would be the machlokas? When the Gemara wants to prove that Rabbi Yossi holds, you see that Rabbi Yossi holds Zen Hena v'Zalei Chaser potem. Right? Because Rabbi Yossi says, if the Makif is God of the Revius, he's not chayiv to pay. The Nikif is not chayiv to pay. So you see that Zen Hena v'Zalei Chaser poter. The Gemara answers, because he can say, the Matzi Amalei l'didi sagi lei benatira bar zuzei. The reason he's poter is because normally it's really Zen Hena v'Zalei Chaser is chayiv. But he doesn't have to pay for the whole wall, because he could say, I could manage with a cheaper wall, because it's just blocking out what needs to be blocked out. So I just want to point out that Tosfos by us, who said, Tosfos has a svara, and says that we have an umdana, nan sahadi. Right, to Tosfos on the Meikonim Bezoil, Tosfos wants to know what's the difference between a Sada Sheina Suyalita, that if he did it Shalei Rishus, so the din is Shamul Aviyad El Tachtoina. So it's more than Meikonim Bezoil. So Tosfos says no, because he could say L'didi Sagile Menatira Bar Zuzei. But why does he have to pay to Meikonim Bezoil? because we have an ansahadi that if it's only amount of joining one wall and he gets it such a cheap price, of course he would be able to join in. So why don't we say that over here? Right? Even by Rabbi Yossi, we should have also this anan sahadi, that if he would find a cheap price, he should pay. So you have to say Rabbi Yossi, according to this pshat, Rabbi Yossi argues on that svara because it's the fact that there's anan sahadi that he would have joined in doesn't create a chiyuv nena of that amount. And what the chiyuv nena is basically what he gets out of this, which is natira barzusei. So if the Gemara says, it comes out according to this, that if the nikif was guided the fourth wall, Rabbi Yossi says that Yechayev, he's masking that Yechayev because you have Goli Daita the Nicholei, and he can't say the same svara that the Gemara says in Bava Kama that Tzagi Leben Adhira Barazuzei. So he's Chayev on the whole amount. So why? Because he's Megaladas, like the Gemara, like the Gemara says, Megaladas, the Nicholei. The similar to the situation of Yored L'Stei Chaver Shel Ebershus, the Sadashay Nasuya Lita, that if he's Megaladas, if in other words the din is that if he makes a wall around it, around that field, then you see that he's interested in it. So it's Yadei Al Yaina, and he has to be Mishtatif. So Taishus over there in Bava Kama asks the kasha, why, if we're saying Zena Hanav Zalei Chasa is Pata, why, when his Amad Nikaf is Chayev, is still Zanan of Zalei Chasa? The Taisha says because also they uses this lashon shiny Amad Nikaf the Gile Daite, that he's interested. The question is, how do we see that he was interested in building all four walls? Where do we see from his Gile Das that he built the fourth wall that he's interested in all four walls? We'll always see that he's Megaladas to build the fourth one. At this point, he's Megaladas that he wants to build up the wall. But if the whole svara is a Gili Das, that he's Nicholei, where do you see from here that he's Nicholei on everything? That's the kasha. And a lot of Achronim discuss this kasha. The Noda B'Yehuda says something very interesting. He says that there's a combination over here. There's a tziruf. Because the Gemara says that even though Rabbi Yossi doesn't hold with the svara of at garamtli akefi yasera, that the Gemara says over there, according to the Tanakama, that the reason you chayiv to pay is because at garamtli akefi yasera. Rabbi Yossi doesn't hold that svara. So, but over here, when we have a svara of nicholei, giladaita the nicholei, you do say at garamtli akefi yasera. That's what the Noda B'Yehuda says. I'm not sure exactly how we make this combination. It's something to think about. It's a svara. He wants to say that according to Rabbi Yossi, you do that he's masking when you have the nikaf makes a gili das that he's interested in it, and you do say kafi yasera, and we combine both svaras, even though one svara is coming from the makif, one coming from the nikaf. I don't know how it works, but that's what Noda B'Yehuda says. But the Tzais HaChayshen says a different yesod. I want to maybe get see if I have it here in the screen. Maybe I'll just have it. It'll be good. Well, it's not working now. Okay. Anyway, what the yesod of the Tzais HaChayshen, maybe I'll just bring it from what I have in front of me, not on the screen. So he says that there's a chiyuv over here called mishtar shilei. What's this mishtar shilei mean? We know that we discussed last week about the chiyuv of Yored L'Sech Chaver Shel Ebershus, and there's a chiyuv also of Shekei Nene, and there's something called Mishtar Shilei. Mishtar Shilei is based on the Gemara in Chulin. That I think I do have. Just a second. Pays to look at it once we're at it. The Gemara in Chulin on Daf Kuf Lamed Aleph. Yeah, the Gemara talks about the chiyuv of mishtar shilei. Yeah, Toshima harei she'ansai beis hamelach garnai. The malchus, the government, wanted the person to pay taxes, and they forced him to give whatever he had from his wheat, from his gairen. So im bechayvoi chayiv la'aser. If that he was, Rashi says, chayiv lo'idava kotz of mammon. So he has to, what they did was the Melech took also the maestros that he has, all his wheat. And turns out that the Levium are losing. So or the Kohanim, so he has to pay from his own, he has to pay from his own property, he has to pay the money of the Trumas and maestros to the Kohanim. So the Gemara says here, there's over there that the reason he has to pay is because there's a svara of Mishtar Shilei. Shanasin to come Mishtar Shilei. So what is this svara? What is this chiyuv of Mishtar Shilei? Right? Taisva says the b'makom zeh hiniach lo yamelach shar moment. Taisva says the kasha. In other words, in Mishtar Shilei, the idea of Mishtar Shilei is as if I have some money by you. In other words, it has nothing to do with hana, but it's mamoini gabach. That I have your money. Let me just go back to the Ktsois. So over here, the Ktsois says, he brings this Gemara, and he says that Mishtar Shilei, even though we're talking about Matas Kahuna, Taisva says, Hasam leka l'chiyuve klal mitaris mazik, kevan de balkarche tachav lechavera. In the case of tachav lechavera, chuma bebeis abliya, and Yechayev mishum hanoas meyav. So Taisva says, he can't say, like the Taisva says in Chulin, that he could have said, I could have fasted, I didn't have to use that food. Only Gabi Matnas Kahuna do you say that Kshem she'ena chayiv ala zeikoi, mishum dav le'mamen she'en le'toivin, kach ena chayiv ala nosei. But just only by a case of Lokeach Beis HaMelech has Gernoi, so it's Mishtar Shalei Achshav, Dim Loikeno, you Loikim Peres Acherim. Therefore, he has to pay because he was Marviach from the Peres that were in his Rishus. The fact that he had those Peres in his Rishus allowed him to be Marviach, so it means that he has the other person's property by him. That's his chiyuv. So if that's the case, when the Taisva says that he's chayiv because of Megala Das, so the Achronim say that the chiyuv over here is because of Mishtar Shilei. In other words, I'm using his, what I'm agreeing to do is I'm using his material for my benefit, and then it's as if I have Moeni Gabach. That's why I have to pay him, but it has nothing to do with the chiyuv of Nana. Let's get this off a second. I'll go upon him. So if that's the chiyuv, so we now know that according to Taisvus and Bava Kama, that the chiyuv of Nicholei is not just a chiyuv of Nana, but it's a chiyuv of using the other person's property. And I think this goes, it's very important to know there's a shita of the Rambam in our sugya. Now, I'll get to that by introducing a different question that we have. What's the din? What do you say? What's the din if the person built the Makav Eschaveri Mishtei Ruchaisav, the first two Ruchais, and then the Nikif goes ahead. He stopped. The Makav stopped. He did two, and then the Nikif built a third wall. What's the din? What would you say? Do you say a svara of Nicholei? You see that he's Golidait at the Nicholei, or do you say no? There's absolutely no hana here yet. It's still open. What do you do in that case? In other words, do you say the svara of Nicholei when you have hana, dafka, or even when there's no hana? So this question is a machlokes in the Poskim between the Beis Yosef and the Ramah. It's a big machlokes. So the Beis Yosef first brings the din, and he says, the Yimachayev him because we have a Gilui Das. Since he's Megala Das, that he's interested in the walls, he's chayev to pay. By the way, in this case, when you see in this case of a Gilui Das, there's more of a svara to say that he's Megala Das, that he's interested in the other two walls, because we're not just talking about a Gilui Das that he's interested in finishing up the job and having himself fully protected by pulling up that wall. Over here, he only did the third wall, so you see that he's Megala Das in the whole structure of the first two walls. That's number one. But the Beis Yosef says that there's a Gilui Das here, even though we don't have the Hana. But Ramah is Chaylik, he says no, you need to have a Hana, and he brings the raya from the Tur who holds like that as long as there's no Hana, you can't be Mechayev. So what is the svar of the Beis Yosef? Lamaisi didn't have Hana. Lamaisi didn't have Hana. So the K'tzais, once again in a different piece, he says that the basis of the Beis Yosef is really the Shita of the Rambam. The Rambam says, the Rambam learns like Rashi in our Sugya, that the wall was put up between the inside field and the outside fields. But the Rambam says something very interesting. He says, he's talking about churva. He brings that there must be, I think the Makar is from a Brisa, the Sefta. So churva is mokefes gader. Is megalgan of as a kol v'noisen chetzi ha'itza shehoitzi ba'arba aruchos ad arba ames ulevad she'yeh mokem ha'koisel shel shneihem. Rama makes a t'nai over here that it only gives half if the koisel belongs to both of them. They were partners. Avalim hoya koisel shel zeh shebana ubechelkei bana yirli she'ein megalgan olav el adava muet k'may she'yiru hadayanim sharei eino yachol l'shtamish b'ksalim. You can't use the walls. The Ravid argues on that din. He says, what do you mean? It's a mishpat ma'ukol shemerviach le'amokim v'gadar oisi yifches le'esetzah. In other words, he says, Adarabah, it should be more of a chiyuv. But the Maggid Mishnah explains the Rambam. Why does the Rambam say that the wall is on both of their property? He says, because only on the wall that a person can use can you say that he has a full hana. So the Maggid Mishnah says that the only time you can be mechayev him with paying the chetzi of the haitzah is because he was zoicha in the half of the wall, because it was built on his rishus. In other words, what do you have here? You have the two partners. The wall belongs to both of them. When they're building the wall, they're basically still partners in the wall. Whereas when you learn the sugya, the first sugya in Bava Basra, so what could we assume? Once they had a shutfim shechalku, and they're building a wall for Hezekiah or whatever it is, so then we would say each one is building the wall, half a wall on his part. They split. But the Maggid Mishnah is saying no. The Mishnah is saying that they're really still shutfim on the wall. They agreed to split the field, but regarding the wall, they're remaining in the original shutfus, and it's half-half. And he says, and therefore, so he's only when the Mekif, once when we see that there's an expression of Nicholay, so then what were we saying? That this is the way the K'tzais explains it. He says, so now he's being kaina the avonim and being kaina whatever's being built as a shutaf, as he's building it, and therefore he's chayiv to pay because it's a kinyan chatzah. My chatzah is being kaina the wall that he's building for me, and I'm chayiv to pay because I was mishabed myself. I was kaina b'kinyan chatzah. So that's a whole new pshat in the Gemara. And now, according to this, the pshat of the Nicholay, the Ma'idagada Chavrei, is that as soon as he has an expression of being interested in joining with the shutfus, so he's coming as a shutfus. So there's no reason to say it's any less than an entire shutfus here. So that's why he has to pay 50%. So that's what the K'tzai says. So the Ktaisus says that that's the svara of the Beis Yosef. The Beis Yosef who says that even though he didn't have hana, we don't need him to have hana here. All we need here is to have an expression of saying that he's interested in the shutfas, and therefore, even though it's not totally complete, right? He didn't build the fourth wall. It's still considered that he's a shutaf, and he has to be, once he's megaladas, that he's interested in this shutfas, in this building, so he has to pay for the whole thing, even though he didn't have the hana. So he said, but what's interesting here is that this svara of the Beis Yosef which is based on the Rambam, is really works according to Rashi, the Rashi's pshat. That is because we're talking about that the wall was between the Nikaf and the Mekif, and then we have shutfas between them. However, if you learn like the other Rishonim, like Taisus, that the wall was on the outside, we can't use these svaras at all, because we're not talking about a shutfas, we're not talking about a wall of shutfas. We can only be talking about a wall he's nena from, and if he has that, he has it on. If not, not. So the Tur is going like the Tur really actually paskins like those other Rishonim, arguing on Rashi, and the wall that we're dealing with is an external wall. So the Tur really, the Ramah who paskins like the Tur, can't say like the Beis Yosef. It doesn't work, because the Beis Yosef's pshat only goes according to Rashi and the Rambam, which is you have the wall between them, and that's the pshat of the Nichalei. But according to the Tur, which the Ramah brings as a basis to his opinion that you have to have hana, according to the Tur, we're talking about an external wall, and only when you actually have the hana, you would be chayiv. Okay, so this would be very, very nice to explain the machlokes, and it goes l'shitasim. Everything's great. The only problem is that it doesn't really work so well, because we know Taishvis learns like the Rishonim, not like Rashi. And let's look at the Mishnah, the next Mishnah of Kaisel Chatzah Shenafal. What's something interesting in Bava Basra, that seemingly unconnected sugyas really are basing themselves on the previous sugya. There's a retzef of going from sugya to sugya, and really all these concepts of Nichalei and Hana, you really can't fully get the whole sugya without looking at the next sugya. So we'll just look at the Mishnah for a moment. Kaisel Chatzah Shenafal, Nachayvin Oisel Livnois, Ad Arba Amis. This is the first case in the Mishnah is talking about a case he had two shutfim, and it was Arba. Maybe the kaisel was taller than Arba Amis, but when they're rebuilding the kaisel as shutfim, they only have to rebuild it till Arba Amis, because of the din of Hezekiah is only till Arba Amis. The Mishnah says, "B'cheska shenosa not shevi ra'yish alay." That's the sugya that the Gemara deals with. The different sugya of chazakas, ein adam pareh b'toch zmanei. But mi dalet amis, ulamalon. But if if he was mishtatif more than arba amis, right? So ein mechayvin oiseh. We don't force the shutif, the other person on the other side, to add more than 4 amis. However, if he samach lekaisel acher, if he put a wall opposite that looks like he's intending to use it for a little binyan, he's going to put a roof on top afterwards, and he built a wall that matched up to the opposite wall. Then he has to pay for even the amount of the wall that's above the 4 amas. So on that din, Taisvis says, Taisvis says, so why are you megalgalin of zakol? We don't know. He wasn't in it. So even though he did not actually have ano yet from this, because as if he doesn't have a roof, all he has is a wall, there's absolutely no ano. But we do see that he intends to make a ceiling and have the use of that wall. So Taisa says he's chayev because he's goli daita the nichalei. So you see that this is a very similar situation that we had with the Ramah and the Beis Yosef. Over here we have Gili Das without Hana, right? And what did we say? According to it's similar to the case when you have when the Mekif built 2 walls and the Nikaf built the 3rd wall. So we say according to the Beis Yosef, he's chayev because it's Gili Das, and according to Ramah, he's Potter because he doesn't have enough. This is a very similar situation, because we have the building of that wall. We see that he wants to do it because he's planning to make a little garage out of it, a little room. So we have Gili Das, but he doesn't have enough. And Tosfos says that it's enough to have Gili Das. And if we want to say, like the Tzais, that the whole cheshbon of the Beis Yosef is because he holds Gili Das is only because he's building a wall on both sides, both properties. As a shutaf, he's chayav to pay. That won't work over here because Tosfos' shita is that the wall of the Makiff and Nikif is on the outside. So he doesn't learn that that's the pshat of Gili Das, that he's actually becoming a shutaf, that he has to pay for it. So just leaving it as a question, when we get to the next sugya, maybe we'll figure it out better. But that's just a question based on the Tosfos pshat. And by the way, there's a very good chart on the previous sugya that anybody wants, Gavriel has it, on the first sugya of Hezekiah.
We're now getting into uncharted territory.
Okay, very good.